Okay, so now that we have created all these, I'm just going to remove the unnecessary ones just for the sake of simplicity, not to have any redundancy. So we need to have 3 different data sets. Now that we have these, we go to the reports and we create a report from blank. Okay, so first thing first, we need to add our data to the report. Our data is in Google Query, but if you also go to my data sources, you can see them here. We can start with one and then add additional data sources later. So I'm just going to start with start station, but you can do them later once you create your report. You see that once you do that, already there's some data that's generated, but let's just remove it, make this clean. I'm going to add other sources of data. So we had bike ID. That's also added too. And so now I should be able to see 2 data sources. Again, that's going to be created. But let's just remove it. We can work with that later. So we have 2, and that's our third one. So now we see that we have basically 3 sources of data that are connected to this particular form. Now our goal was to create something that's, again, relatively similar to this, right? So this is city bike. So let's start with like some of the elements. So first thing first, I mean, treat this as a document that you can draw on it. So the first thing I need to do is to create some space, maybe change the theme. I can go to the theme and layout. This one looks like it had dark theme, so I'll just create that one. And what I'm going to do is that I start to put a couple of bars. So basically these are like shapes that you can just drop it in the figure. So let me just do a couple quickly. Just do a rectangle. You can also copy paste them once you create one. So I'll just Control C, Control V on Mac. Here's another one. And we have a turtle, so this could be another one. Okay. Next thing is, let's say for instance we want to add the logo here just to make it look nice. I already downloaded the logo from internet, so what I can do is I can go to Insert, do an image, and just drop it here, and then you go to data. I'll find my logo, and it will come here, and then you can like simply resize it and like put it where you want it. An interesting thing here is that actually you can use some of the colors that are in the logo in order to create your report. You can just go to the extract theme from image, and then it will give you some suggestions. Let's say these are the colors, top and bottom, and if you want you can apply one of these. Let's just say for the sake of showing you how it works, I can just do that. But again, yeah, I was like more into the dark theme, so I'll just go back. You can again change these colors and play with this just to see how it works. Now next thing is we have some text that shows basically the header for these reports we're creating. So I can just add some text. I can just call this city bike dashboard. You can click it and move it. You can change the styling here and make it a little bigger, say 28. It looks, rest is good. Now in order to put again the piece of text in other places, you can simply again just copy paste and just drag those here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and organize these and the headers quickly. Okay, so now that you have some basic elements of this, let's try to mimic again some of these. The first thing you want to add is, now we have our data sets here. I'm interested to add some numbers. Basically, we call these the scorecards, right? So we go to add chart. I'm just gonna drop a couple of these scorecards here. So the first thing I'm interested in is, for instance, I want to know what would be the total number of bike trips. So we click this first, and then we look at the data. So I can use the data set start station. So we have date, and then in terms of the metric, we are interested in, we said the total number of trips, total trips. So we can say the number of trips. Like the other fields, we can again copy paste this field, and it will create exactly the same field. So I'm just going to drop another one here. Let's do another scorecard. Let's say we're interested to do the average number of trips that it would take. So, and that's why we calculated that extra field. So we have that. If you have a date range dimension, it will pick up the date. We'll talk about that in a little bit. In terms of matrix, now we're interested into average number of daily bike rides per minute, and that should be on average. So that kind of makes sense. So it takes about, for instance, 15 minutes on average, all of these 33 million bike rides. Let's create a couple of more matrix here in terms of scorecards. And again, don't forget that we can play with the format of these. It's also easy to do if you want to, for instance, if you want to edit multiple categories, you can just select them all, and you can go to styles, and you can change the font or make them smaller, make them bigger. You can do any of those. Let's say, for instance, we want to change this number. We want to bold it a little bit more. So go to style. I can make these numbers red, so it will be more highlighted, so it's more emphasized basically. Change this formatting, make it nice. Again, you can play around with these as much as you want. The next thing we're interested in, let's try to create another measure. In this one, we're going to calculate the average trips paid per day that was done. So for that, again, I'm going to go back to the data, average trips that were done per day. So we can use the date dimension again, but now we're going to use the number of trips, and those are summed. So we want to look interested in average. Again, these are some examples. You can come up with other examples on your end. Okay, so I added a couple of other interesting scorecards here. So just copy paste it. This one is the bike ID. So basically you, from your bike ID data set, you count this thing. The number of bike IDs shows the number of bikes that are circulating in the system. And for the last one, I used the station data set. So I basically counted use count distinct for the start station name. Just basically see how many stations, unique stations people have started taking bikes from, which comes to 679 in our data set. Now, interestingly, you can change the information to be more descriptive, and in order to do that, what we can do is, for instance, if you have the total number of trips, if you click on sum, here you can basically provide more information that is a little more descriptive if that's what you're looking for. It's like total number of trips. You can again do that for all of these metrics. Just click on that, put a name here, and it will show on top again. It's more representative to know exactly what they're showing.